At 4:47 a.m. on September 25, 1917, Private William Coltman crawled toward German machine gun positions as 64 men from his battalion lay wounded in no man's land between Ypres and Zonnebeke. The 27-year-old stretcher-bearer from Burton-on-Trent stood 5 feet 2 inches tall. British Army regulations required minimum height of 5 feet 3. Coltman had been rejected twice before medical officer finally passed him with notation: questionable physical fitness. That morning, 8 men were screaming for help 300 yards beyond British lines. 300 yards of barbed wire, shell craters, poison gas remnants, and German machine guns firing at anything that moved. Standard doctrine: wait until dark to recover wounded. Survival rate for daylight rescue, approximately 3%. Coltman carried no weapon, never had. Registered as conscientious objector, refused to kill, but volunteered as stretcher-bearer. Officers called him coward. Fellow soldiers avoided him in mess. But this morning, men were dying. He had minutes before blood loss or German patrols found them. Medical officer Captain James Morrison told him, "Stay in trench until nightfall." Coltman climbed over parapet anyway. British Army stretcher-bearers faced impossible mathematics. Standard 4-man stretcher team required to carry 1 wounded soldier. Weight of stretcher plus wounded man, 180 to 220 pounds. Distance from German lines to British aid station, 800 yards average. Terrain: shell-cratered mud, barbed wire, obstacles every 30 feet. Constant machine gun fire from elevated German positions. Past 6 weeks at 3rd Ypres. 124 stretcher-bearers killed attempting daylight rescues. German machine gunners had learned to target medical personnel specifically. Red Cross armband made bearer visible target, not protected status. September 1917 alone. 47 British stretcher-bearers killed in Ypres salient. That was 47 deaths, trying to save perhaps 90 wounded. Mathematics didn't favor rescue. Captain Morrison had ordered all stretcher-bearers to remain in trenches after sunrise. German positions commanded clear sightlines across no man's land. Any movement drew immediate fire. 3 MG08 Maxim machine guns positioned in concrete pillboxes 400 yards forward. Each Maxim, 450 rounds per minute. Effective range 2,000 yards. German gunners had zeroed their weapons on every approach route. Past 72 hours. 19 men killed attempting daylight movement. Morrison had lost 2 medical officers and 6 stretcher-bearers in 5 days. He couldn't afford to lose more. Standard protocol: mark wounded positions, wait for darkness, recover after sunset. Wounded men had 8 to 12-hour wait. Many bled out before rescue arrived. Coltman heard Private Thomas Hewitt screaming. Hewitt was 19 years old from Staffordshire. Had joined same week as Coltman. Hewitt had been hit by shrapnel at 4:12 a.m. during German artillery barrage. Lay 180 yards beyond British wire. His screaming had continued 35 minutes, then weakened, then stopped. Coltman knew what silence meant. At 4:47, Coltman removed Red Cross armband. Told Corporal David Matthews, "Armband makes me target. Better chance without it." Matthews, "You'll be shot as combatant if captured. Coltman won't be captured." Matthews grabbed his arm. "You're 5'2" and unarmed. You'll die out there." Coltman pulled free and climbed over sandbags. Matthews watched him disappear into crater 20 yards forward. Last thing Matthews saw, Coltman's small frame silhouetted against dawn light, crawling toward German lines. No man's land between British and German trenches at this section measured 320 yards. British wire obstacles extended 40 yards forward from trench line. German wire began approximately 40 yards before their trenches. That left 240 yards of open ground. Open meant shell craters, unexploded ordnance, corpses from previous attacks, pools of poison gas settling in low areas. Barbed wire obstacles consisted of wooden posts every 6 feet, strung with multiple strands of concertina wire. Standard British defensive wire, 4 rows deep, each row 3 feet high. Wire itself, hardened steel, barbs every 4 inches. Cutting wire created noise that drew immediate fire. Going over wire exposed silhouette against sky. Going under meant crawling through mud, contaminated with decomposing bodies and chemical residue. Coltman chose under, moved 6 inches at a time. German machine guns traversed no man's land in patterns. Gunners fired bursts every 30 seconds at likely approach routes. Coltman learned the pattern. Counted seconds between bursts. Moved during reloads. Learned which craters provided defilade from which gun positions. At 5:03 a.m., Coltman reached Private Hewitt. Hewitt was unconscious. Shrapnel had severed his left femoral artery. Leg was mostly gone below knee. He'd lost perhaps 3 pints of blood. Normal adult, 5 pints total. Hewitt had minutes. Coltman applied tourniquet using Hewitt's own belt. Tightened until bleeding stopped. Checked pulse, weak but present. Hewitt weighed 154 pounds. Coltman weighed 132. Standard procedure required foreman team with stretcher. Coltman had neither team nor stretcher. He had 320 yards of wire and machine gun fire between Hewitt and British aid station. He grabbed Hewitt under arms and began dragging. Crawled backward through mud. Hewitt's body provided some cover from German fire. At 5:11, machine gun burst tore through ground 3 feet to Coltman's right. German gunners had seen movement. At 5:14 mortar, round impacted 15 yards forward. Germans were ranging on his position. Coltman dragged Hewitt into shell crater. Crater was 7 feet deep, half filled with water. Water was red. 3 British soldiers already dead there from previous days fighting. Coltman positioned Hewitt above waterline. Checked tourniquet, still tight. Pulse, still present. At 5:19, Coltman heard second voice. Private Robert Mitchell. Mitchell was 23 from Lancashire. Lay 90 yards northwest of Coltman's position. Mitchell had been shot through both legs. Couldn't move. Had been calling for help since 4:30. His voice was weakening. Coltman crawled toward Mitchell. Distance 90 yards through wire. German machine gun 340 yards directly ahead had clear line of sight. Coltman watched tracer rounds arcing overhead. Counted patterns MG08 gunners fired in 6-round bursts. Then traversed weapon right to left. Then back. Full cycle took 18 seconds. Coltman moved during traverse. Froze during firing. Reached Mitchell at 5:34. Mitchell was conscious. Both femurs shattered. Right leg bent at impossible angle. Left leg mostly severed above knee. Mitchell saw Coltman. Thought you were officer. They said, officer would come. Coltman, I'm here now. Applied tourniquets to both legs. Mitchell can't feel legs. That's good, Coltman said. Means you're still alive. Began dragging Mitchell toward British lines. At 5:41, German machine gun fire intensified. Bullets impacted around Coltman every few seconds. Germans had definitely spotted him. Mortar rounds began falling. First round, 20 yards short. Second round, 12 yards over. Germans were bracketing. Third round would likely be direct hit. Coltman pulled Mitchell into another crater. This crater was smaller, 4 feet deep, no water. But 3 German soldiers dead there. Had been killed during British raid 2 days prior. Bodies were badly decomposed. Smell was overwhelming. Mitchell started vomiting. Coltman held his head, waited. At 5:49, third mortar round impacted exactly where they'd been 30 seconds earlier. Crater exploded upward. Dirt and shrapnel rained down. Something sharp hit Coltman's left shoulder. He felt blood. Didn't check wound. Checked Mitchell's tourniquets instead. Still tight. Mitchell, leave me, you'll die. Coltman, both going back. Mitchell, I'm 187 pounds. You're tiny, can't carry me. Coltman, watch me. Coltman dragged Mitchell 40 yards. Reached British wire at 6:07. Getting through wire with wounded man was different than getting through alone. Mitchell's body kept snagging on barbs. Each snag required stopping. Stopping meant exposure. German machine guns were firing continuously now. Bullets cut through wire 6 inches above Coltman's head. He could hear them snapping, could feel displaced air. At 6:14, bullet grazed Mitchell's right arm. Mitchell screamed. Coltman clamped hand over his mouth. Germans would hear screaming, would concentrate fire. Coltman whispered, "Quiet now." Almost there, pulled Mitchell through final strand of wire. British sentries saw them, reached down, pulled Mitchell over parapet. 2 medical orderlies grabbed him, ran toward aid station. Coltman started back toward no man's land. Sergeant William Hughes grabbed him. "Where are you going?" Coltman, "More men, out there." "Hughes, you're wounded." Coltman looked at his shoulder. Shrapnel had torn through uniform, bleeding but not arterial. He kept moving. At 6:22, Coltman climbed back over parapet. Hughes tried to stop him. Captain Morrison arrived. "Private Coltman, stand down." "That's an order, Coltman." 6 more men out there, sir." Morrison, "They're likely dead by now." Coltman, "Likely isn't certain." Morrison stared at him. "Then, if you die out there, I'm writing letter to your mother, explaining why I let you go." Coltman, "Yes, sir." Climbed over sandbags, disappeared into smoke and mud. Morrison watched him go. Turned to Hughes. "That man is either bravest soldier I've ever seen, or completely insane." Hughes, "Maybe both, sir." Third man was Lance Corporal Edward Price. Price was 26 from Wales. Had been shot through stomach. Lay 210 yards beyond British wire. Coltman reached him at 6:38. Price was conscious but fading. Gutshot meant internal bleeding. Nothing Coltman could do about that here. Needed surgeon immediately. Price, "Hurts." Coltman, "I know," gave him water from canteen. Price drank, coughed. Blood came up. Coltman knew what that meant. Stomach or liver hit. Maybe both. Time was everything. Grabbed Price under arms, started dragging. Price was 163 pounds. Coltman had now dragged a total of 504 pounds of wounded soldiers through 300 yards of wire and machine gun fire. His shoulders were screaming. Hands bleeding from wire cuts. Left shoulder wound had soaked through uniform. He ignored all of it. At 6:51, German sniper shot Price through right lung. Price jerked, made wet gasping sound. Collapsed. Coltman pulled him into crater. Checked pulse, still beating. Weak, but there. Applied pressure to new chest wound. Blood bubbled through his fingers. Price looked at him. "Leave me. I'm done, Coltman." "Not deciding that today." Price, "You're bleeding." Coltman, "Everyone's bleeding." Price tried to laugh. Coughed blood instead. Coltman waited in crater until 7:02. German fire had intensified. Machine guns sweeping constantly. Mortar falling every 30 seconds. Moving now meant probable death for both of them. But staying meant Price bled out within minutes. Coltman made calculation. 90 yards to British wire. Maybe 3 minutes crawling fast. Price had maybe 5 minutes of blood left. Math worked if Germans didn't hit them. Coltman grabbed Price and moved. German machine gun fire erupted immediately. Bullets tore through ground everywhere. Coltman crawled through it. Didn't think. Just moved. Focused on next crater. Next 3 feet. Next yard. Price was making sounds. Bad sounds. Wet breathing. Coltman kept crawling. At 7:04, bullet hit Price's left leg. Price didn't react. Probably couldn't feel it anymore. Coltman reached British wire at 7:05. Pulled Price through. British soldiers reached down. Pulled them both in. Medical orderlies grabbed Price. Ran. Coltman collapsed against sandbag. Captain Morrison appeared. "Private Coltman, that's enough." Coltman, "For more." Morrison, "You've done enough." Coltman stood up. "For more men out there, sir." Morrison, "I'm ordering you to stand down." Coltman, "Respectfully, sir." "No." Morrison stared, then stepped aside. "God help you." Fourth man was Private James Walsh. Walsh was 21 from Ireland. Lay 270 yards out. Furthest position. Walsh had been hit by artillery. Both legs gone below knees. Left arm severed at elbow. Coltman reached him at 7:24. Walsh was somehow conscious. Walsh saw him, Angel Coltman. Just a soldier. Walsh can't feel anything. Coltman, that's shock. Walsh, am I dying? Coltman didn't answer, applied tourniquets to both legs and arm stump. Walsh had lost catastrophic blood. Face was white. Lips blue. Pulse was thready. Maybe 40 beats per minute. Normal, 70. Walsh probably had minutes. Coltman grabbed him and moved. Walsh weighed 146 pounds before losing limbs. Now maybe 120, but dead weight is different than live weight. Harder to grip, harder to drag. Coltman's hands were shredded. Could barely hold on. Every few yards, Walsh would slip. Coltman would have to stop. Reset grip. Keep moving. At 7:31, German machine gun burst, hit ground between Coltman's legs. Didn't hit him. Missed by inches. At 7:34, mortar round exploded 10 yards right. Shrapnel tore through Coltman's right thigh. He felt it punch through. Felt warm blood running down leg. Didn't stop. Reached British wire at 7:39. Pulled Walsh through. British soldiers grabbed Walsh immediately. Morrison grabbed Coltman. You're hit, Coltman. 4 times now, sir. Morrison, hospital now. Coltman, 3 more men. Morrison, you can barely stand. Coltman can crawl, sir. Morrison looked at him, then nodded. Bring them home. 5th man was Private Arthur Thompson. Thompson was 24, from Yorkshire. Had been shot through pelvis. Lay 195 yards out in crater, filled with poison gas. Coltman reached him at 7:58. Thompson was unconscious. Gas mask had been torn off by shrapnel. Thompson had been breathing chlorine gas for unknown duration. Lungs were likely damaged. Coltman put his own gas mask on Thompson's face. Breathed unfiltered air. Could smell chlorine immediately. Felt burning in throat. Started coughing. Grabbed Thompson and climbed out of crater. No gas mask meant Coltman had maybe 2 minutes before incapacitation. He crawled fast, faster than safe. German machine guns firing constantly. Bullets everywhere. Coltman didn't care anymore. Throat was burning. Vision starting to blur. Just needed to reach wire. Reached British line at 8:04. Handed Thompson over. Collapsed. Captain Morrison, Private Coltman, you're done. Coltman, 2 more. Morrison, you've been shot 4 times and gassed. Coltman, 2 more men, sir. Morrison grabbed medical orderly. Bandage him. Keep him breathing. We're not losing him. Medical orderly cleaned and wrapped Coltman's wounds. Shoulder, deep shrapnel cut, not life-threatening. Thigh, through and through bullet wound, missed femoral artery. Multiple wire cuts on hands and arms. Chlorine gas inhalation. Moderate, orderly, you need hospital, Coltman. After orderly bandaged wounds, gave him water. Coltman drank, vomited. Chlorine gas effect. Waited 5 minutes. At 8:17, climbed back over parapet. Morrison didn't try to stop him this time, just watched. Sergeant Hughes, he's going to die. Out there, Morrison, probably. But he'll die trying to save those men. That's who he is. 6th man was Corporal Michael O'Brien. O'Brien was 29, from Dublin. Had been hit by machine gun fire. 3 rounds through torso, lay 225 yards out. Coltman reached him at 8:34. O'Brien was barely conscious. Sucking chest wound. Right lung collapsed. Blood filling chest cavity. Without immediate surgery, O'Brien had perhaps 20 minutes. Coltman had no equipment to treat sucking chest wound properly. He packed wound with gauze from his medical kit. Applied pressure. O'Brien can't breathe. Coltman, I know, working on it. Used O'Brien's own uniform jacket to seal wound. Tied it tight. Not medical procedure, but better than nothing. O'Brien's breathing eased slightly. Not good, but less bad. Coltman began dragging him back. O'Brien was 176 pounds. Coltman's strength was nearly gone. Hands barely functioned. Shoulder wound had reopened. Thigh wound bleeding through bandage. He crawled anyway. At 8:41, German artillery barrage began. Shells impacting every few seconds. Coltman pulled O'Brien into crater. waited. Shells walked across no man's land, getting closer, 50 yards away, 40, 30. Then shifted left. Barrage moved away from their position. Coltman waited 30 seconds, then moved. Reached British wire at 8:49. Handed O'Brien over. Sergeant Hughes, one more. Coltman, one more. Hughes, Jesus Christ, lad. Seventh man was Private Samuel Finch. Finch was 20 from London. Had been hit by shrapnel during morning barrage. Multiple wounds lay 240 yards out in shell crater. Coltman reached him at 9:07. Finch was conscious but delirious. Shrapnel had torn through left side. Ribs exposed, lung visible through wound. Massive bleeding. Coltman applied pressure. Used entire contents of medical kit, bandages, gauze, anything. Blood soaked through everything. Finch, cold. Coltman, that's blood loss. Finch, going to die. Coltman, not if I can help it. Finch, thank you. Coltman grabbed him and moved. Finch kept talking, delirious speech. Talking about home, about mother, about girlfriend named Mary. Coltman listened, kept crawling. At 9:14, Finch stopped talking. Coltman checked pulse, still there. Finch had passed out. Better, unconscious patients don't feel pain. Coltman dragged him 180 yards. German fire had decreased. Either gunners were exhausted or impressed or out of ammunition. Coltman didn't care which. Reached British wire at 9:23. Handed Finch over. Medical orderlies grabbed him. Ran toward aid station. Captain Morrison, Private Coltman. How many more? Coltman, that's all, sir. 8 men. Morrison, you rescued 8 wounded soldiers. Alone, in daylight. Through 300 yards of wire and machine gun fire. Coltman, yes, sir. Morrison, sit down before you die. Coltman collapsed. Medical orderlies examined Coltman's injuries. 4 shrapnel wounds. 2 bullet wounds. Chlorine gas inhalation. Multiple lacerations from barbed wire. Blood loss, estimated 3 pints. He'd crawled approximately 2,400 yards total. Carried or dragged 1,226 pounds of wounded soldiers. Time in no man's land. 4 hours, 36 minutes. German machine guns had fired estimated 40,000 rounds during that period. Mortar had fired 200 rounds. Artillery, 150 shells. Coltman had survived all of it. All 8 wounded soldiers he rescued survived long enough to reach field hospital. 6 of 8 survived their wounds. Thomas Hewitt survived, leg amputated, returned home. Robert Mitchell survived, both legs amputated, medically discharged. Edward Price died during surgery, infection from gut wound. Lance Corporal O'Brien survived, returned to duty 6 months later. Arthur Thompson survived, permanent lung damage from gas. James Walsh died 3 days later, blood loss complications. Samuel Finch survived, returned home. Word of Coltman's rescue spread through battalion immediately. Soldiers who had avoided him now sought him out. Officers who had called him coward now called him hero. Captain Morrison wrote Recommendation for Distinguished Conduct Medal. Recommendation was approved October 2nd, 1917. But that wasn't the end of Coltman's service. He continued as stretcher-bearer. Over next 13 months, Coltman performed similar rescues 63 more times. Not always 8 men at once. Sometimes 1. Sometimes 3. Always alone. Always daylight. Always under fire. Records show Coltman rescued minimum 300 wounded soldiers during 26 months of combat. Never carried weapon, never fired shot, never killed enemy soldier. Just crawled through machine gun fire and brought men home. November 11th, 1918. Armistice signed. War ended. British Army began tallying decorations. Distinguished Conduct Medal. Awarded to 25,000 soldiers during Great War. Military Medal. Awarded to 115,000. Victoria Cross. Awarded to 633. Victoria Cross was Britain's highest military decoration. Awarded only for extreme valor in presence of enemy. Survival rate for Victoria Cross actions, approximately 20%. Most recipients died earning it. Committee, reviewing Coltman's record. September 25, 1917 alone, justified Victoria Cross. But 63 similar actions over 26 months. That wasn't bravery. That was something beyond. December 1918, King George V personally awarded Private William Coltman the Victoria Cross, Distinguished Conduct Medal with bar, and Military Medal with bar. Only private soldier in British Army to receive all three decorations. Only soldier in war to receive Victoria Cross and both DCM and MM. Citation, read. For most conspicuous bravery and devotion to duty over period of 26 months. Has on numerous occasions, under heavy fire, carried wounded men to safety, displaying courage and determination beyond measure. His actions saved estimated 300 lives. But British military establishment had problem. William Coltman was conscientious objector, refused to kill 5 feet 2 inches tall. Working class, from Burton-on-Trent, not aristocrat, not officer, not public school educated. Military wanted heroes who looked like heroes. Tall, strong officers from good families. Coltman was none of those things. December 1918, Coltman received Victoria Cross in quiet ceremony. No press coverage. No newspaper articles. No public celebration. Other Victoria Cross recipients received parades. Coltman received handshake and train ticket home. He returned to Burton-on-Trent, December 23, 1918. Returned to pre-war job. Gardner married his girlfriend Ada in 1919. Had 3 children. Lived in small house. Never spoke publicly about war. When people asked about medals, he'd say, "Just did my job. That's all." 1920s and 1930s, British government promoted war heroes for public morale. Created image of British soldier. Tall, strong, brave, officer class. Published books, made films, built memorials. William Coltman's name, mentioned briefly in official records. Never featured prominently. Too short. To working class. Conscientious objector who refused to kill, didn't fit narrative government wanted. Official policy emphasized soldiers who killed many enemies. Minimized soldiers who only saved lives. Coltman understood. Never complained. Just worked in gardens and raised family. 1940. Second World War began. Government asked Coltman to participate in recruiting drives. Wanted war hero to encourage enlistment. Coltman declined. Said he wouldn't encourage young men to fight. Government, but your Victoria Cross recipient, Coltman. I received medal for saving lives, not taking them. Won't help send boys to die. Government officials called him ungrateful. Called him coward again. Said his refusal was unpatriotic. Coltman didn't respond, just went back to gardens. During Second World War, multiple British officers wore Victoria Cross, were lionized in press. Received hero worship. William Coltman worked as gardener in Burton-on-Trent. Grew vegetables for war effort. That was his contribution. Nobody interviewed him. Nobody wrote articles. Nobody asked about his Victoria Cross. He preferred it that way. 1974. William Coltman died, age 84. Buried in Stapen Hills Cemetery, Burton-on-Trent. Funeral attended by family and few friends. No military honor guard. No government representatives. No press coverage. Obituary in local newspaper. William Coltman, 84. Retired gardener. Formerly of 6th North Staffordshire Regiment. Survived by wife Ada and 3 children. Did not mention Victoria Cross. Did not mention rescuing 300 soldiers. Did not mention crawling through machine gun fire alone for 4 hours 36 minutes on September 25, 1917. 1998. Military historian researching Victoria Cross recipients discovered Coltman's file. Found 26 months of citations. Found testimony from soldiers he saved. Found Captain Morrison's reports. Morrison had written, "Private Coltman displayed courage beyond any soldier I have witnessed. His small stature and conscientious objection to killing made him subject of ridicule among officers and men. But his actions under fire proved him most courageous man in battalion. He saved more lives than any soldier in this regiment. Perhaps any soldier in British Army. Recommend highest honours. Historian traced Coltman's descendants. Found daughter Margaret asked about father's Victoria Cross. Margaret, father never talked about war. Kept medals in drawer. Never wore them. Didn't want attention. When I asked about war, he'd say, just tried to help where I could. That's all. 2,000 British military historians compared Victoria Cross recipients, compiled statistics. Most VC actions, single act of extreme bravery, lasting minutes or hours. Coltman's citations, 63 separate acts over 26 months, each qualifying individually for VC. Historians calculated, Coltman rescued minimum 300 wounded soldiers. Average rescue, 200 yards through enemy fire. Total distance crawled while rescuing wounded, approximately 38 miles. Under machine gun fire through barbed wire. Carrying or dragging wounded men. No weapon, just determination to bring soldiers home. Conclusion. William Coltman likely saved more lives under fire than any soldier in British military history. But in Burton-on-Trent, most residents didn't know William Coltman's name. Didn't know local gardener had been most decorated private soldier in British Army. Didn't know he'd saved 300 lives. Small memorial plaque installed at cemetery in 2006 reads, Private William Coltman VCDC MMM, most decorated private soldier in British Army during Great War. Saved estimated 300 wounded soldiers under fire. Most visitors walk past without stopping. Looks like any other memorial plaque. But it is not. That's how courage actually happens in war. Not through tall soldiers from aristocratic families. Through working-class gardeners from Burton-on-Trent, who refuse to kill but crawl through machine gun fire anyway, because men are dying, and someone has to bring them home. P-40 never achieved fame of Spitfire or Hurricane. William Coltman never achieved fame of other Victoria Cross recipients. But in hands of determined men like William Coltman, courage proved what mattered most, wasn't physical stature or willingness to kill. It was absolute refusal to let fellow soldiers die when you could save them. One soldier, 5 feet 2 inches tall. 300 wounded men. September 25, 1917. Through November 11, 1918. William Coltman proved impossible courage. Means nothing when someone refuses to quit. If stories like this remind you why we preserve history, hit that like button. Subscribe for more forgotten heroes. Turn on notification bell so you never miss these stories. Drop comment and tell us where you're watching from. Anyone in your family served in Great War? Thanks for watching. Thanks for making sure William Coltman doesn't disappear into silence. These men deserve to be remembered. You're helping make that happen. We'll see you in the next story.